Dimp Digital presents Idle Game Chat.
Cool.
Alan Wake 2, Logan.
Yeah.
If I was to say to you that Alan Wake 2 is arriving this October the 17th, 2023, I said, what's the chance of you sitting down and playing this video game? What's the percentage you'd give me?
0.2.
I like the fact that you didn't go completely flat zero.
I never flat zero. I never, ever just go never, ever. But, I mean, the chances are slim to none.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't want to bet on it. You're never getting that bet. But there is a chance in one life that it does happen.
In a different timeline, maybe it does. And that's where the tiny, minuscule percentage has got to come in. Well, we got some details from this when Sony decided to show up and do a PlayStation showcase, which roundly criticised by most people as being too long and boring. I tend to agree with that. But there was some information that came out of this. We've got the Alan Wake 2 release date coming later this year. However, it's the details within the FAQ that Remedy released that perked my interest. So they as usual, the game was announced a release date. A web page went up with all manner of frequently asked questions. And I wanted to pull a quote.
Normal?
It is nowadays. It seems
it?
to be. Well, because nothing's simple, is it? They're always fucking about with pre-orders and early access and this, that, and the other, and season passes and skin. Like, there's always some bollocks that doesn't just make sense, you know, on a trailer. But what they did confirm, which I thought was quite interesting, was that this is going to be a digital-only release. And they cited a number of reasons. So I'm going to pluck the quotes out here.
Yeah.
So for one, a large number of players have shifted to digital only, which I think is fair. I think we've gone through the maths of this, and you know, when we did the European sales data, they come up with that being the majority, and that seems to be over 50% now.
Yeah.
You can buy a Sony PlayStation 5 without a disc drive, and Microsoft's Xbox Series S is digital only console. So again, sort of hammering that point home, there's people without disc drives out there now. It's not uncommon to release modern games as digital only. So it's not uncommon, but I don't think it's the norm yet for AAA.
I mean, so that's what they're basically looking at, like a Pentiment or these like more indie style games.
15
well, it's
quid.
common.
Well,
yeah, and you go, well, it is, but you don't be seeing God of War do that, or like anything really that's coming from, as you say, a AAA publisher or developer. That's a bit of an. I mean, it's not wrong. I don't think it's roundly wrong, but they've put themselves in a different pigeonhole there.
Yes, they have. Secondly, not releasing a disc helps keep the price of the game at $59.99. We've got $59.99, $59.99, and $49.99 UK pounds, and the PC version at $49 and €49 and 40 quid. So I want to stop there, because what they're basically trying to say is that not doing that disc means we can knock a tenner off. Well, actually, let's just be fair to it. Like, it's a tenner off in terms of dollars, because it's $60 instead of $70. They're saying the UK price is going to be 50 UK pounds, which is 20 UK pounds off the PlayStation rate. And they're citing that not doing a disc version has helped with that. Now, we've all long said that why are digital games being charged the same price as a disc, because you've got to come out and produce the disc and whatnot, but we've never seen, well, we probably have, and we just haven't seen it in our little sphere we operate in, but very rarely do you see a publisher and a developer come out and say, well, we're doing this digital only and it's going to keep an extra $10 or 20 quid in your pocket. I mean, it's logical, but it's just not how the system's worked, is it? And it's not how the system works today. You don't get a discrepancy in retail versus digital prices, even though clearly it's cheaper for anyone to just drop a game on a storefront.
Yeah, I mean, normally...
Are they fibbing?
I don't necessarily think they're fibbing.
Well, they've been too honest and saying this is actually true and no one says it.
Well, I think there's that. I mean, I don't know if they're being too honest. For whatever reason, they've gone, don't really want to be doing this disc malarkey. So how can we get away with it? And we'll
Yeah.
try and be for basically they're going, well, we're the good Samaritans of the world. It's like, well, it keeps the price point for that initial purchase lower, but you don't get the chance to buy it a month later at discounted rates
That's
in a game
very
or a
good point.
CEX. So I wouldn't say that that's wholly a good thing, and you obviously don't get a trade in on it then either. So
No.
saying that you're friends of the show when what you're doing is removing the ability to trade in and removing the ability to buy a traded in game, are you really the good Samaritans? I mean, arguably for someone like me, right, if I wanted to play this, it's that I win. Because if I wanted to play it day one, I can get it cheaper. It will still be in my library. I've got no intent of trading or buying a traded game, so I would win. But
Yeah.
there would be people that don't like that, and then you get the hardcore fans that go, "No, I want everything in a bit of plastic." It's like, well, why do you?
I want to ruin the planet.
Just to have a bit of something there, so that when they're streaming, they've got all these games in the background.
Yeah.
Or whatever. I don't know. It's like people that buy books and go on Zoom calls and they've got this whole bookshelf behind them. And you think, you ain't read all that.
Then someone finds Mein Kampf and they look close and like, hang on, what's going on there? And then they have to explain that away. Which I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with reading that, but obviously the assumption is that if you've got
educational, isn't it?
Well, I've not read it myself.
Learn from those mistakes.
I mean, you don't need to read a book to know about that, though, do you?
Well,
surely you just know.
It's there. But we digress as usual. But yeah, I think it's interesting, as you say. I think it's probably a bit of a watershed moment for what you consider a AAA game, just deciding not to do that.
Remedy are kind of. I think the quality of their games are there, but typically, this is the trouble. We don't get anywhere near enough transparency to say this as a matter of fact. But the budget on their games, I'm led to believe, is lower than what another one is. But it doesn't matter to me. The quality of the game always stands up to those. And like Control, one of my favourite games of last generation. I really did enjoy that. And I mean, for me, again, as a digital fiend now, I'm thinking, well, this is good news. 50 UK pounds if I want it day one. So that's fine. I think I would love to see a price discrepancy. I'd love to see the physical game be more expensive at launch and the digital game to be cheap to show that there's money being saved. But they're never going to do that because the retailers will, go mental and they ship their hardware for them. And there's too much of a relationship there for the publishers to cut them out like that. But they are being cut out essentially here for this particular game. I suppose it's one game in a game of 100 or 1,000 that come out this year. But I do have some level of sympathy for the physical people, like the Biffs Society. I'm wondering whether they'll even play this, like the Biffs, the Adkins, who have been, pretty much ride or die on physical. Biff in particular, because he likes to buy it and trade it. That's just how he operates. Every game gets traded unless it's The Last of Us or some level of remake of The Last of Us. And he's not going to have that option here. I wonder what he will do, whether he'll just skip it altogether.
I mean, I suspect if it's good enough or if he gets bored enough, then he'll dip into it. But his approach really is a sensible approach, which you wouldn't have expected really in terms of the group. I mean, mine and your approach is arguably the least financially savvy option, but stupid. I'm all about convenience. Whereas Biff's got the most financially savvy option, and I think it does hurt those sort of people. And it does give, the publisher control, basically. Yeah. Ironically, control. Very clever there. Why did that in there? Control over the price, ultimately, on all the digital stores they put it on. There's no, CEX or whatever putting that at a secondary price. They could just keep it at £50 for the rest of the time if they wanted to. Yeah. So, I mean, it no doubt appear on a deal at some point, but...
Well, the deals on the digital stores are never usually... eventually they get to this stage, but the physical sales, the sale on games, comes a lot quicker than the digital. The digital, you're waiting months. You can sometimes walk into a game store, should you be brave enough, and there's a game that's released probably 4 weeks ago, and it's a tenner knocked off it if it's not sold well.
Yeah.
So at physical, at retail, there is definitely a quicker slide for when that takes place. But No, interesting that they've done this, and it caused a little bit of a stir. I'm trying to get an answer out of Adkins of whether he would buy it if it's digital only, because he loves Alan Wake, you see, but he's not quite physical ride or die, because he has bought a couple of games on the digital market, one of them being Deathloop, and he never played it for 3 hours and then stopped. So he does do that a lot, but he's sort of asking questions about whether it's got a release date, and he's not just answering the question like I'd like him to. It's early in the morning, and he's not going to probably respond in time or with an answer that's going to be worthwhile reading out. Last quote here. Finally, we did not want to ship a disc product and have it require a download for the game. We do not think this would make for a great game experience either. I mean, that's just standard practice, though, because you're going to ship a digital product that's going to require a download initially and probably a patch. I think I understand what they're trying to say. They're trying to go down this route again of saying, well, look, you if you want game preservation, there's all these day one patches. You haven't got to do that here because we haven't even got the fucking option for one. But I think they're clutching at straws here, aren't they? When you're trying to sell someone on something, you kind of need 3 reasons. And I think they got 2 and then thought, we can't think of a third one here. And Alan's stressing out because there's the deadlines coming up for the FAQ to be published, and then one of the interns has come up with that dross.
It always makes me like they've got no obligation to justify their business decisions, right? They've got no obligation to do that. Yeah, they come out with some load of old dross. Why don't they just go, look, cheaper, innit? We ain't got a bigger budget, so this is what we're doing. If you want the game, buy it. If you don't, stick it up your ass. I mean, it ain't the best PR, but
I don't know how much it is to cost to to manufacture a disc and a case and ship it.
Oh, it can't be a lot.
It won't be, no. It won't put them under, will it, if they don't sell those copies?
I'd say it was £1, I reckon. It must be something like overall must be £1 a game or something like that. I mean, you'd imagine it's more to do with they must have to, I don't know, do they pay like the stockists? Like there must be additional distribution cost over just production and actually physically stocking it. And for whatever reason they've gone, we could probably just cut that out, Jeff.
Yeah. Maybe they've got data on like their last game that came out and it was like 90% digital. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
They've got all the metrics. They know better than us whether this will make a significant difference to their bottom line.
The ultimate answer is if it would, they would be doing it.
Yeah.
Physically, so you virtually know that it ain't going to make a difference. Essentially, they've done the maths and they've gone, look, what it costs us to distribute it versus who's going to buy it ain't worth it. Let's cut it, and they've gone, yep.
Yeah, Alan liked that. He saw the numbers go up and went, "I'll take that approach. Thank you."
Oh, but some of it we might get a bit of criticism. Oh, shut up.
Do the FAQ. Shut them up.
Do the FAQ. They'll love it.
They should have gone
for tenner off.
They should have gone for the environment as well. So we don't believe in pumping more. I mean, that's a slam dunk. That's the third one for me. That intern's really. He could have been a hero there in that boardroom. Come out of that
we
one.
We don't believe in any unnecessary plastic packaging.
Yeah.
Release it in cardboard then. Well.
No. Tell you what, I had some Smarties the other day and like a share pack. And it's made out of paper now, the bag, which I'm fine with. But I don't know whether it's just it's got in my head that this is happening or whether it's actually happening and it tastes different. But I felt like I could taste the paper on the Smarties.
Well, they've got rid of those E numbers in the Smarties as well now. So you think it's that? When you look at the Smarties now, they used to be these shiny, crunchy, delightful little bastards, and now they're like dull. Looks like they've been like washed with that fucking shit paint we used to have at school. So there's that, and then a little bit of paper getting involved. But I've never forgiven Smarties for getting rid of that plastic thing on the tube.
When you used to pop it off. Yeah. Oh,
I ain't had the pack since they got rid of that.
No.
Unforgivable.
That is unforgivable, really. I mean, I used to love that thing, yeah. It must have been a nightmare for my parents because the dogs were roaming around. There's me popping that off and carefree probably leaving it. You don't want them to be picking up and eating that. Fortunately, they didn't, at least to my memory anyway. Update on Adkins. I said, will you get Alan Wake 2 even though it's digital only? Response, dunno. Does it have a release date? I gave him the release date. His response, So that's what we're going to get out of him this week.
And he's just a pathetic... why is that even a question? Like, when you actually go back to the original question, Alan Wake 2, digital only, you're going to get it, and he can't say yes or no. What's the release date got to do with it? Why is What's he got something slotted in on that date that he's trying to?
What I should have said
Weird.
to him was, well, I tried to contextualise it by saying digital only and give away that's what I'm angling at. Is that going to make or break your decision? But he's worried about schedules and stuff, so that's a nonsense from him. Oh well, he'll be listening
What
to this.
can you do?
Cackling in that fucking van, no doubt.
Yeah.
Sausage sandwich on the go, getting it down his shirt. Anyway, let's take a break and introduce the podcast. This is Idle Game Chat, Dimp Digital's flagship video game podcast. Got Apps here on the hosting duties, joined by the resident referee and the reigning FGL Grand Prix winner, Logan. We're here most weeks. Had quite a lot of time off because of the bank holidays being compressed, but I think we're done now until like August, which is not ideal for us because we get days off for work, bank holidays, for no extra effort.
People will be surprised to learn this isn't a full-time endeavour.
Yeah, well, it's grassroots. That's what I was going to get to.
It is grassroots.
Absolutely independent grassroots. And grassroots independent endeavours need funding. Well, actually, they don't need funding, usually. And this one doesn't either. But we would appreciate if you want to go to patreon.com/dimpdigital and join the community. #hand in pocket. Right. Got some FGL updates.
Yeah.
Got a couple roaming in. I want to start with Street Fighter 6.
Yeah.
Sitting on a 92 on OpenCritic. Now, I like some Street Fighter. I'm never a big fighting game fan. But I must say, I was completely caught cold to see this getting a 92. I thought it would be like mid-80s. But 107 reviews in, so a decent number here. Street Fighter 6... 92. Biff's got it in his Grand Prix team, so he's loving that. He's one game away from completing the 10, and he's made a transfer to try and make that happen. But just quick thoughts on Street Fighter 6. I mean, you're not a fighting game fan. I don't like to make assumptions, but
No. I used to have them on like the Mega Drive and things like. They were more commonplace.
that's all they fucking had. They had that and fucking Mario and Sonic and everything else. Really, dross.
Yeah, I mean, it's a completely fair assessment. It was. So I played it a bit on there, and then when I got my PlayStation, I played a bit of Tekken. But I feel like the world moved on from fighting games, and I certainly did. I was like, well, what more can you do? Is
Well,
where
you can get
I
a
largely-
92 in 2023 somehow.
Yeah, but this is what I mean. I don't know. I genuinely, when I see them, I'm like, they look better. You can do more funky stuff. Obviously, they're a lot slicker. But fundamentally, they're the same fucking game I was playing 25 years ago. At its core. And I'm just surprised that these continue to... I mean, look, I mean, it's easy for me to sit here criticising when I play God knows how many hours on Spreadsheet Simulator. So it's all got to be contextualised with self-awareness. But I just don't really understand them. I find it bizarre, and it's like to be getting roundly above a 9 out of 10 for a fighting game seems excessive. But there must be those people that are just like, this is in this genre, it's like as good as it gets, basically.
It's a similar. I'm not discrediting the score. I think this just happens generally across the industry. But the easiest analog I can compare it to is something like a Dark Souls or a From Software game. Typically, when the reviews come in, they'll go to people that have played those games previously, that have enjoyed those games. So you're not going to get a layman's view on those games. I think it's the same with fighting games because they are highly complex. And to be honest, do you really care about someone like me sitting there trying to bundle through that, who has no idea what they're doing, has no real interest in learning the deep mechanics? I just want to get through a story mode and maybe have a couple of games online. I don't think that's useful to people. So I think this does go off to the aficionados of the fighting game community, and therefore something that's good in that space is likely to score well. And it's more of a vacuum, isn't it, in that case? And I think that happens with a lot of games. You know,
I mean, is that wrong though? And I know we've discussed how to review games a lot, but it's like if you put a Resident Evil in front of me or like an Outlast and ask me to review it, like I'm not going to give arguably a real. I mean, I'd give my view on it, which would be I fucking hated it. Yeah, but that's not reflective of someone that would usually enjoy that game. So but it does give you a bias, if you like, that you haven't got like an average Joe.
No.
Apology. Again, incredibly clever use of wording there, an average Joe. But sometimes with some games, I would like that. Like I sometimes think about games that are normally outside my wheelhouse like this. I think, could I pick up a fighting game now and try and play through a story, or would I be too shit and slow to get anywhere near it? But and the review will never give me that, because arguably it's always going to be people that are into that stuff. So it's a fair point.
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, I've played through the Injustice story campaigns. They were pretty good. And then they had like a multiverses mode, which was basically you could play against the AI and unlock like new skins and armor, and there was like modifiers on the matches, so it might be that you take damage if you stand still or something. It's silly things like that, and it's all random and whatnot. That was okay for a few hours. But I think I don't know, I hear what you're saying, like, is there gonna should we just have people that have no idea what they're saying? But the other part of me is like, at this stage, you haven't figured out whether you like fighting games at all, then you need to go to the doctors and get help, because you must. It ain't hard to suss out if you're going to like a good fighting game, is it really?
Yeah.
And people have biases towards certain characters. Like some people will only want to play Mortal Kombat because they love those characters. Same with Tekken. The same with Street Fighter 6 in this case. And we're never going to release ourselves from the shackle of bias. But I think it's time to just embrace the bias and get these cards on the table so people know what the bias is.
Yeah.
It's not an inherently bad thing. All humans are biased in some ways. People saying Spurs had a good season. So
who's saying that?
I don't think anyone said that, actually. There'll be a couple, maybe.
I'd like to find them and then get their heads tested.
Won't be Arsenal fans, because they really slipped up towards the end. Anyway, so we've got some blurbs and reviews to read. We've got David James. Not the goalie.
Oh,
don't
what's he doing? Branched out.
Maybe it is. We got this covered. I've never heard of this firm before, but he's given it 3 out of 5 stars. So this is on the lower end. We'll do one lower one.
Star system. I don't like it.
Well, we go to Luke Hemming from Cubed if you want. He's got 7 out of 10. Okay, sorry, David. Stick to goalkeeping or art. Actually, he was on. There was a show that called Go 8-Bit that was on. I think it was on Challenge TV. He was a guest on that one. So apparently he does play some level of video game, but
with those big old hands, good lord,
he's struggling, I think, with that. Anyway, Luke Hemming, 7 out of 10. Street Fighter 6, in its simplest form, remains a fantastic fun experience, retaining the same gameplay that has been tweaked and improved throughout the years to ensure it remains top of the pile. So that's maybe the sort of review you're looking for there. You're saying, look, we've had this.
If you're going to play it, this is the best of the bunch.
Yeah. Therefore, 7 out of 10 hasn't blown me bollocks off.
That's probably is that more what you'd expect from a game like this? Like, best you can do, 7 out of 10.
I don't know.
Yeah, I've put you on the spot with that, because that's a real tricky answer.
I think it goes back to the genre question, isn't it? It's like if you're seen as a high performer in a specific genre, you're likely to score higher than a 7.
The average.
Because we're assuming that people have this like big view of every game that comes out, and they have this big spectrum. They're like, right, that's this one. There's God of War. There's Starfield. When I don't think it. I just think there's no way of doing that objectively. It has to. You're always going to struggle with that. It might just be
surely, and I'm just going to play devil's advocate slightly. When you put something as complex and as involved in every single way that God of War is, up against something like Street Fighter 6, and you're saying that there's very little between them.
Well, this is what it comes into, an opinion, doesn't it? And a preference. Because someone might play God of War and go, I don't care about any of the cutscenes. I don't think. I like first-person shooters. And then
there are people that do that.
Well, do you know what I mean? I think it's just a preference thing. Like, there's no. I would agree. There's more moving mechanics probably in God of War, but Street Fighter 6 will have a lot of stuff under the hood in terms of balancing and whatnot. I mean, I don't know exactly what you're saying. Like, if you put the two side by side, there's clearly one that at least feels on the surface that has more complexity and more moving parts in it because it's a bigger, wider scope and whatnot. But if you're, really good at one genre and nail it, I guess there's also praise to be had there. But that's why comparing the score sometimes gets people down rabbit holes, because There's no fair comparison unless you physically set out the categories in which you have a game to be reviewed in and say we're going to do online, for example. That's going to be a category. So God of War gets 0 in that one, and then you just do an average of all the categories. That's the only way you could fairly do it. And even then, that doesn't reflect whether the game's really good or not. That just shows that a game's got more modes potentially. You're going down that rabbit hole where it's the jack of all trades. It's got online multiplayer, it's got single player, it's got customization, but it's all like quite average. But something like God of War doesn't have any online, so it gets a 0 instead of a 7 in that category.
Can you imagine? Oh, really fucking drills it.
I don't know.
I mean, you can't outwardly go, well, because one game's more complicated, it objectively makes it a better game. I just think it's an interesting thing to do, to say, look, if you put these side by side, which, and they've got similar-ish scores, what do you sit there and say, well, are they both? I mean, the answer is they are both subjectively, they're both subjectively good games. Yep. But it just feels weird, doesn't it, when you look at the overall score?
But if you only ever play fighting games, you'll be like, well, God of War's rubbish. The combat's weak as shit. Like, it's all perspective, I think. Yeah. There's no analogue to getting that correctly. Who we got here? Sean Smith, God is Geek. Street Fighter 6 is without question the best fighting game package I've ever played, and will keep you going far longer than a one-on-one fighter has any right to be able to. A true classic, 10 out of 10. So,
no room for improvement. Interesting.
Well, that's why we don't use numbers here, because you don't have to deal with that question, do you? Anyway, that's Street Fighter 6, 92.
Yeah, done. Ticked
off. Let's move on to the next big release. Diablo 4.
Oh, they've skipped 2 entries.
They should do. Diablo 4.
Because Street Fighter 6, isn't it? That's what's happened.
Yeah, happened. Yeah, absolutely. Got an 89 though, Diablo 4. Which, if I was going to guess which one was going to get the 92 and the 89, I would have gone the other way round. But Diablo not struggling, fucking 89. What am I talking about? But not. It just in comparing it to Street Fighter was a bit of an eyebrow raiser. Salmon's got this in the Grand Prix, and your arch enemy Parky has it in his team. So he's knocking on the door slightly, saying, "Look, I'm not gone yet. We've still got some fuel left in the tank here." But Diablo 4. Now I wanted to speak to you about this before just doing a bit of a review dive. In fact, we do that first because that's the way to do it, isn't it? Get some fucking reviews in here. What we got here? 8 out of 10. God almighty. What is this? I'm going to skip that one.
Is this a good night? No, get in here.
Kazuma. Oh, no, it's easy. Kazuma Hashimoto. So,
there we go.
Diablo 4. It's not been translated, though, it says. So, and it's from... I can't do their outlet name. What's this? Siliconera? No idea. Anyway, Diablo 4 features the compelling antagonist in Lilith, and while it tries to present more interesting ideas into the series by way of a story, it ends up retreading old ground in more ways than one. I mean, if it's Diablo, I mean, that's par for the course.
It does.
So that's literally a retread sim from my experience of playing Diablo 3, which we'll get into. It was asking us to redo the same thing again on a higher difficulty. And I was like, what? And how many difficulties are there? 15, huh? What do you mean? Anyway, let's go into the top one. Lauren Bergin from PC Games N. Diablo 4 embodies the essence of what makes Diablo so great, taking the best elements of its predecessors and sewing them together to create an ever-changing, ever-evolving chimera that we can't wait to play for years to come. So they're saying there's going to be years to come out of that. Anyway, it's got itself an 89. Now, usually this would be skipped over and say, look, Logan, when are you playing this one? And you'd say, I'm not. But you do have history of Diablo and Diablo 3 in particular with myself and Paper. Sunday morning sessions being born out of that game potentially. Is there any chance that this gets picked up in some way or another? Or was Diablo 3 such a bad experience for you that you walked away from it?
Don't know whether we did that game right. I don't know. I think I from memory at the start, I did enjoy the. I did enjoy the mechanics and how it all worked. And then as we got into it, I just found myself button bashing. I think, and I recall it becoming a bit of a slog, and we had to get through it. And we got through it and thought, right, where do we go next? It's like, right, off you go again.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? So I'm a bit wary that if we didn't like the loop, that what's the point in ultimately doing that again? But I never say never. I feel like there was something there, but ultimately I don't know if it suits us. I think is where I landed up with it. So I wouldn't say I'm never going to pick it up. I think if we all landed at the right spot and felt like it deserved another go, I'd be there for it. But I don't know if I'd be knocking on your door to do it, if that makes sense.
No, I think I'm in a similar boat. I've kind of like, I mean, I don't know. When we played through that third one, it was okay, but I just don't think it suited what I enjoy at all.
Yeah.
And I think you're right in saying we played it wrong, but I mean,
is that our fault?
Why am I not being told?
Yeah.
Why is the game not suggesting things to me? Like, it was a weird game to me in the way it was kind of set up and structured. In that, you know, the expectation was to kind of go back through on higher difficulties. But actually, I think having played more of a Destiny type game, you know, and that's a lot of replaying sections to get loot. I mean, that's really, I think, the heart of it to a certain extent. And that's
but the core gameplay has to make you want to do that. Like, you have to enjoy the core gameplay enough to go. And arguably, you look at WoW and all these types of games, a lot of them are about like grinding loot and grinding missions. I don't think that aspect's uncommon, but I just find that top-down style crawler just a bit mind-numbing.
But that may have been because it was too easy for us. Is it literally?
I don't know, because it just chucks more to it. That's all they tend to do, is just chuck bigger, harder to, and you just find yourself just do. And that is what a lot of games do. It's not something specific necessarily to Diablo, but you know, you just sit there and you think, I'm not. How much am I really doing here? Like with Destiny, you pick your guns, you can pick your class, you can choose what subclasses you
do all
use.
that here.
You've got some sort of tactic around how to take someone down and a pattern and everything. It's just fucking chaos. I found in Diablo. Like there's no. I don't know whether again is it us? Like we're just sitting there, just unable after 30 years of friendship to muster up any sort of chemistry. There is probably that argument. But
I just think it was too easy for us, which meant we didn't have to do anything. We literally walked through. I did that sick fucking dropped a load of sick on their head. It would literally annihilate most things, and that was it. It weren't really that engaging. It was too easy for us. So there's an argument to be made that there's games out there where combat is criticised. I always think of The Witcher 3. People are like, oh, that combat's shit, innit? It's just block, parry, dodge, or whatever. And I'm like, what difficulty did you play it on? They're like normal. I'm like, if you're getting annoyed about the combat of a particular game and you're not on the top difficulty or high difficulty, I do think there's merit to just putting it up a level, because it will make you use more of the, more of the depth that's potentially there. Yeah. It's just that on a default difficulty, you can just get through button mashing essentially. But it's like those Nightfalls in Destiny. Like you put those strikes on, you had to really be switched on. Same with those raids, they were a higher difficulty, and that's where the game came together, really. And Diablo's got the scope for that. It's got many different difficulty levels, and I think that's the mentality you got to go in. Is not look for an easy game just to get through. You want to get it onto a level where it's challenging, where you have to work together as a team, or if you're on your own, and utilize your build and build your character in a certain way.
I do recall that I basically just didn't. I think you unlock all this stuff, and I was just like, well, it didn't seem to matter what I put on. No. I think that's where, like,
that's because it's too easy again. I think.
Yeah,
quite possibly. If it was on a higher difficulty and you were getting absolutely shams, you'd be like, hang on a minute, I've got to figure out what's going wrong here. So anyway, that's just a general piece of advice. If people are not happy with how if things are too easy or combat's not deep enough or whatever, put it on a harder difficulty, and then it'll make you at least use all the tools there. If when you do that it's still garbage and you can't get over it, then fair enough. But no, Diablo 4 it's on that sort of menu that's somewhere in the future and may just fall off eventually. You know, I don't see myself suddenly getting the itch for it, and therefore it means it's unlikely to ever fall into my lap. The only change in heart I would say is that if and when Phil closes this Activision Blizzard King deal and it then appears on Game Pass, you know, at that point it's kind of like, okay, that's opening a door there. So
I never close it. I think that's the point. Is like I didn't. I wouldn't say I enjoyed Diablo 3. Like I didn't. I think we roundly crapped on it when we reviewed it.
Paper did it on his own. Did his own review.
Did he? Wow.
It's quite hilarious to find it in YouTube archives.
I have to go and get that later. But yeah, I think there's. I do remember there being something there. So yeah, it's not a case of I'd ever rule it out, but I think that the stars would have to align, and there'd have to be some. I wouldn't say I'd have to be forced into it. I wouldn't be instigating it. It's like, right, we're doing this. You come along for the ride, and I'd probably reluctantly go. Yeah. It'd be more that sort of thing. Who knows?
We will see.
We don't have Sunday morning sessions anymore. That's dead.
That's gone. So kill it off just about UFOs now, that group. Anyway, got some transfers. Biff has subbed out or transferred out only Road to Be the Mightiest, which is out but hasn't garnered enough reviews from, you know, proper outlets to get a score. So he's taken the plunge of just transferring that out for Assassin's Creed Mirage, which is due later on this year, saying it's going to go back to the old Assassin's Creed assassination style. No more Viking combat to it. So we'll see how that pans out.
After the most successful one to date, they're going back to the drawing board. You've got to query it.
Well, that's true. I'm surprised. I am surprised. I'm kind of thankful because I think I was getting tired of that formula.
Yeah.
You know, one game in that formula, like Valhalla, was enough. But bearing in mind, I've played 3 of them. Origins. What was the second one? I can't remember what the second one was called in that trilogy. But Origins and Valhalla, and then whatever the middle one was. Was a blower for me, and at least they're scaling it back slightly. So we'll be interested to see how that pans out as time goes on. And then Adkins has finally got rid of Suicide Squad, so we know that's in deep shit, so that's no surprise there. And he has transferred in Mortal Kombat 1. So he's obviously seen the scores of Street Fighter 6.
And hoping for more.
And it's tricked his brain, isn't it, into thinking, well, if that's getting a 92, then Mortal Kombat will get a 93. And we'll see whether that pans out. But Mortal Kombat is being rebooted for the second time. So for those that are following the story of that, they seem to reset it every few sessions, which I'm not against. September the 19th it comes out. We'll find out. Means I could jump into this one and just play the story mode again if I wanted to do that.
Off you go.
To be fair, the Injustice guys, they're the ones that make Mortal Kombat as well. So the story mode may well be up to snuff. NetherRealm Studios. The only reason I didn't play the Mortal Kombats before is because they were like halfway through a story arc. I was like, if I'm only going to play the story mode, then that's no.
Yeah, you need the backstory.
Need the rich backstory. Mortal Kombat 1 gives me that opportunity potentially. But yeah, and then we've got Tekken 8 coming at some point. I mean, 3. Well, I don't know how they've all decided that released in 2023 would be the way to do it. Like,
go up against each other, don't they? Everyone whaps their cocks out at the same time and go, who's his biggest?
Yeah. I wonder who will win that. Maybe we'll report back on who wins that particular battle. But
it's going to be tricky to beat Street Fighter at a 92, that's for sure.
I think that's set a high mark there, and the others will be looking at that thinking, maybe we should do a bit more polishing to do that. I was hoping to have a transfer from you ready to call out, but as the date was looked at, you actually tried to transfer in a game that you've already got.
I did, yeah.
And so
I like it that much. I tried to do it twice.
Tried to get Pikmin 4 in there twice.
Yeah, whoops. So yeah, Homeworld 3's obviously got to go as I'm pretty sure we just did that as delay news, haven't we already the other week?
Yeah.
So that's obviously got to go. Tranny window's now open, so got to try and figure out something to put it in with. And when I was looking at the list, I was like, oh, I haven't got Pikmin in there. That seems like an obvious one to put in. I went, I'll have Pikmin. I'll get back to you. Didn't hear from you for nearly 24 hours, and then when you've already got it, I was like, wow.
Well, I was going to just sloppily just put it through, and then I thought, well, no, I will sit down and check when I'm back at the PC. I just didn't go back to it, and then I actually checked, and I was like, oh, no, you've already got that. So
yeah, that's what I did Suicide Squad for. You're right. It's because looking at the bloody OG list. Ironically, though, I didn't identify that I hadn't transferred out Suicide Squad. I just ignored it.
Yeah, left that in there.
Query the brain. But yeah, I'll have to go back to the drawing board and have a look and see if I can find a sort of little gem that's sitting there that can get me upwards of. I need it to score 85 points. It needs to be, because after that penalty, I'll be getting an 80 for it, and then if you start subbing stuff that's going to get less than an 85, and all of a sudden you're only getting high 70s anyway.
Well,
annoying.
These are scores on the doors for the FGL Championship. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games out, an average of 88, which is good, and a total of 521. One transfer, which is Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, out for Pikmin 4. Parky has got 1, 2, 3, 4 games out, 320 points, an average of 80. And that's with his Diablo 4 scoring a 90. So there is room to play with there.
Yeah, but you don't want to get complacent, do you?
No.
Like, that's the problem. It's easy just to go, well, I've got this in the bag. It's like, well, when you look at what's still got to come out, you realise that it could be a gap that tightens somewhat quite easily. So, I'm just trying to look for... It's my own philosophy. It's like, when I transfer something in, it needs to be getting a mid-80s because of that 5-point penalty. I would like the idea of some free transfers in this.
What do you mean?
Well, I feel like that 5-point penalty sometimes is overburdensome. Now, don't get me wrong. If you put 10 games in or blank 10 games, and then you could play the system and wait, like, I do get it. But I think where you pick games and there's only 1 or 2 coming out, like, and sometimes there's not an awful lot coming out that
there's fucking hundreds. Street Fighter 6 missed.
The 5-point penalty sometimes feels a bit of a burdensome.
That's what it's there for. It's to make you not just be sloppy.
Yeah, I know. I guess even if it was a case of, like, if you put a game in your draft that hasn't got a release date, well, then you know you're risking it. If there's a game that's got a release date, say it's got a release date locked in middle of the year, and then they go, no, we're chucking it. Like, then I think you just feel like, well, what do we do here then?
Got to look at these developers and what their track record's like. Are they delivering on time first time? Most of them aren't. You just got to deal with it. It's the same for everyone. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it just feels at times like you get penalised for something that's outside your control, and you go, well, now I've got to try and scrabble around for something that's going to...
Most of your list is outside your control. 6 of the games come from those morons.
Yeah, I know, yeah. But then it's out of their control, and you pick your moron. So there is an element of control where you go, well, I've got to find the best of the worst here.
Yeah.
No, I mean, look, I get what you're saying. It works. I understand why it's there. But sometimes when you're just trying to then figure out something to put in, you're pretty much never going to get from a sub like plus 80. Like, you're always going to be scrambling around to try and find something that after that penalty you're going to get low 80s for, and it's tricky.
Low 80s is fine. That'll win you most leagues, I reckon, consistently across the board. But
it would do.
I hear you, but it's not changing. You're going to be. It's going to be. I might even.
I'll keep lobbying.
Maybe I'll increase it to 10 points. Really put the pressure on people.
That would fucking hurt.
That is too much. Yeah, it has to be a balance between it. And there has to be something there to stop people just chucking it, like GTA 6 people have put on this year.
Yeah, I
And
know.
then-
I get why it's there. It makes people go, we can't just blank and then just put stuff in
Put two.
the middle of the year. Yeah.
Well, at least
so
you-
I get it.
At least you didn't end up with Lord of the Rings Gollum, a 39.
I did put in a list. I think it wasn't this year's list. It was
last year, a
year's.
couple of people had it. So
Even then, when I put it in there, I was like, this looks like shit, but I'm going to put it in here anyway. And
well, you'd expect a 60, 70, and it got a 40. It's like, good
well,
Lord.
I mean, it really did look bad, though.
Metro Game Central, 1 out of 10.
That's mad, isn't it? That is mad.
I mean, who wants to play as Gollum? Anyway, we're not going to talk about Gollum. It's a awfully reviewed game, and everyone would have seen that. Right, let's close out the podcast. We're going to take off here, and I'm going to be back with Mr. Biff to talk about Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
Here we go.
He's played through that. He's completed it. He's going to drop his opinion with all the technical issues that he may or may not have encountered, plus obviously the gameplay elements of what he did and didn't enjoy. So we'll be returning for that. Logan will be departing and probably be back on our next edition. But we will see you on the other side. Here we are then, back with some game impressions to close out this edition of Idle Game Chat, joined by Mark Smith Biff, former FGL champion, former Grand Prix winner, never won the quiz, but has won the wooden spoon for the quiz. So I think it's the lowest score still, actually.
You'll do well to beat that. You'll do well to get lower than what I got.
Paper got one more than it one year, so he was really perilously close to at least drawing level and topping it. But no, we're here to talk about Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which is the sequel to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I think that's a terrible franchise name, like Star Wars Jedi, and then it's like a stop, and then it's like the subtitle. It doesn't roll with the tongue.
No, it doesn't. No, you're right. I've never really thought about that. I've just referred to it as Fallen Order and Survivor, but it is Star Wars Jedi, I think you're right.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's a good franchise name, but they've got 2 out of it now, so who the hell knows? Well, look, we'll jump straight into it. Cards on the table. This is a sequel to Fallen Order. They said this is called Survivor. I want to get your thoughts on Fallen Order, because it's been a hot minute since that came out. And presumably you're picking up the sequel here, so you must have had some enjoyment for Fallen Order. But some people say it's the de facto Star Wars game, beating out... What was that other game that you used to like back in the day?
Force Unleashed.
Force Unleashed, yeah, so beating that out. Was it better than Force Unleashed, old Fallen Order, in your eyes?
Yeah, I think it was. It was completely different because it was... the combat was sort of much more tricky. It wasn't just hack and slash. I forgot what the franchise that you introduced me to. Is it Dark Souls? It's sort of that sort of thing where you can lose your experience. You have to go back. So there's more to it than the Force Unleashed. The Force Unleashed is just a story hack and slash. So I preferred this. Fallen Order, much preferred it.
Excellent. And what did you make of Fallen Order in general? Was you satisfied of it? Shortcomings or...
Yeah, I think overall it was a really good game. Sometimes the combat was a bit didn't feel quite as polished. There's a few times you'd hit block and you'd think, well, I'll definitely block that, but it didn't let me have
user
it.
error, innit?
That's what a lot of people say.
Skill. You put it on a harder difficulty as well, though, didn't you? To make
I
remember you complained at the parry windows. I was like, just put it on the normal difficulty. What are you guys doing to yourselves for?
No, I put it on the harder difficulty and then moaned about they were fucking short, they were. And they were still setting above that, so I thought you must have to be some sort of god to play that, but yeah.
Yes, no, it was. I remember just having it on the normal one and thinking, I'm not struggling with this at all. It was difficult, don't get me wrong, it was tricky at times. It wasn't a walkover, like you probably would have maybe expect for a Star Wars game. You think, oh, they'll make it, dumb it down so that any old crapper can do it. But you had to have your wits about you to get through that.
Definitely.
From what I remember. On a scale of 1 to 10, how big a Star Wars fan are you in 2023 now? Because I feel like that's waned slightly for most people over the last 5 years. But You know, I remember he's obviously a big fan of it throughout most of your life, but lately, perhaps not hitting the high notes that they did back in the day with the old classics.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Star Wars, and I do like it.
You watch pretty much everything, don't you? They chuck out from like Disney Plus. Like, it's very rare that you'll skip one of those things, even if it's dross.
The only thing I haven't watched is Andor, but I've been told I need to watch that because I've been told it's quite good. But I've watched everything else, and you know, there's a few hits with Disney. There's a lot of shit. I'd say there's more shit than hits, but yeah, I am a fan of the franchise overall. I do really like it. Probably give it like an 8. I am a big fan of it.
Okay. And how excited were you for Survivor? Because, you know, it's a follow-up to an existing franchise. It is set in Star Wars, but we don't get too many Star Wars games like this these days, which I think was what people enjoyed Fallen Order for, if nothing else, was that, you know, it's not a squadrons, you know, shooting game. It's not like Battlefront was like, you know, a first-person shooter for all intents and purposes. This was like a Jedi game for once, which is the cool thing about Star Wars.
Yeah, so I was really excited because, like you say, the first-person shooters you get and the squadrons that you could be, you know, it might as well be Call of Duty. It's the same sort of thing. It's just reskinned as Star Wars and the same as squadrons as well. So this felt like a proper Star Wars game with Jedis, and you know, you get certain characters and certain nods to the franchises and things like that. So I was very excited because I think Fallen Order was really good, and it wasn't an amazing game, but it fell short just a little bit in certain places. And I thought if they can buff that up, this, you know, could be a really, really good game for them.
Yeah, I'm still looking forward to playing it. I have not played it as of this moment, but I'm planning to get round to it at some point this year. If I ever finish Persona 5 Royal, you know, we're 90 hours deep and no end in sight, so I don't know what we're going to do about that if I'm still sitting here this time next year trudging through that, but we'll get there eventually.
Jedi Survivor 2 comes out and you'll still...
I'll still be... You have to wait until the trilogy's wrapped up and then just do all 3 in one go, I think, at this rate. What did you play this on? What console or platform did you play it on?
PS5.
PS5 on a lovely LG OLED as well to boot. So
Yeah.
one of the best sort of console kits that you can get, and I may be foreshadowing a potential thing later on with that. Do you know roughly how many hours you think you spent with this? Because I know you finished it and then kind of went back and started doing some cleanup, so we'll probably talk about how the game's structured a bit later, but I mean, what are we talking here? Are we talking a 10-hour experience, a 20-hour experience, 30 plus? What are we looking at?
I reckon it was 35 to 40.
Okay.
So I put a few hours into it and I went back over and sort of picked it clean.
Right.
Not 100% did it, and I'll explain why a bit later when we get into the grugs of it, but yeah.
About 35 plus hours.
35 and a bit hours, I reckon.
Do you think you could have done it in a shorter time frame if you'd stuck to like the main path? I'm assuming there's side bits like there was in the first one, or distractions where you can sort of wander off and do other things. Is it something that on a critical path could be done much quicker? Yeah,
I reckon you could probably do it in 20 hours.
Okay, still meaty though, not like
it's a big game, you know, still good. Again, I put it on a slightly harder difficulty, so it made it harder, and I died a lot more times. I don't know why I do that, but yeah, I do. But yeah, I've done it again.
Did you notice anything of the power of the PS5? That sounds like marketing shit, doesn't it? Power of the PS, but dying and like respawning, was it much quicker thanks to the SSD? And the Xbox will have this as well. Or did you sort of begrudge dying each time and staring at that load screen, going, "Oh, I've just fucking cost myself here"?
I've never really thought about that. Sometimes it loaded quite quickly, and other times it didn't. And I've got a few bones with the game running, so I don't know if that had anything to do with that. But it didn't take too long. It wasn't. You didn't sort of have to sit there for ages and ages waiting for it. But there was a load. You do have to wait for a load screen. You have a little bar come up.
Okay.
So, yeah.
It's not complete. It's not like Demon Souls we've seen, which it basically just chucks you back in the game almost immediately. And it's not quite as bad as Bloodborne by the sounds of things, where you'd be sitting there 40 odd seconds, which is
not
unacceptable.
Quite that long. Yeah.
It's longer than that. So honestly, I think I sat there for over a minute, and I was like, "What's going on?" Like, you're already fuming because you've just died. Like the last sliver of health on bloody Bloodstaff Beast or whatever, you couldn't kill it on the 15th time, and you're stuck staring at that bloody screen of loading. But sounds like a lot of the issues around that has been resolved, mostly of these SSDs. Let's get into just a bit of the narrative and the setup for this. So this is a direct sequel taking place after Fallen Order. What's the basic kind of setup for this title? Because I actually can't remember fuck all from Fallen Order. I was just thinking about this earlier, and I was like, I don't remember what happened. All I remember is those Wookiees looking like they've had a real hard weekend and looking like. Have they improved the Wookiees? Are they in this?
I don't remember seeing a Wookiee, if I'm honest. I think they just killed them off.
Do you think they looked at it and thought, we can't get them right, so we're not even going to include them this time?
Yeah, basically, yeah. I don't remember seeing a Wookiee, if I'm honest.
Well, fair enough. Well, maybe they just didn't bother them. But in terms of story, what are we looking at here in terms of a setup here? You're still taking the role of Cal, I assume.
Yeah.
The red-headed Jedi.
Yeah, so at the end of it, there's like a little gang of them on the Mantis, and they're going to set out and do a task. I think they're going to collect bits that show them where the old Jedis are from Jedi survivors, I think. But when you get to the game, the gang's all split up. Cal's out on his own, and he's still looking for information, and it sort of things escalate from there, and he has to go and visit old friends from the first game, sort of thing, and the story kicks on from there, basically. And
does it deliver a satisfying or a good narrative for you? You know, we've had the likes of heavy hitters like God of War coming down the pipe, and obviously The Last of Us parts 1 and 2. What sort of level are we looking at here for a narrative experience?
I mean, I wouldn't go as far as God of War, Last of Us 1 or 2, but it's a good story. It's a sort of a good concept, especially if you're sort of, the Star Wars story and things like that. So yeah, it is good. It's better than average, but not as good as the AAAs, I'd say.
Excellent. Well, that's what I wanted to know on that. I just need to know if you thought it was good and, what sort of level we're looking at so we can move on. Here's the big one. I'm just going to get it out of the way immediately. Technical proficiency, presentation and performance. Well, I know this because we were speaking and you and Adkins both. This is the thing. This is obviously anecdotal. Perhaps your PS5s are both buggered in some way, but I don't think it is. But the pair of you throughout the playthrough, and Adkins hasn't even finished it. I think he got fed up with it and went on to Zelda, and he's like, at least this thing works. But we both had heavy complaints around the technical performance of Jedi Survivor. Now, talk me through it all. Is there any redeeming factors of this? Is it at base level, does the game look like a PS5 game? Does it run? Well, I've already given away one of the things I know you complained about in terms of running, but is there anything positive? Because I've got a feeling this is going to be quite lopsided on the other way.
Yeah, so it's fucking trash. It is absolute garbage. Every now and again, as a still image, if you're not moving at all, you think,
pause the game.
It looks quite good. They've still not managed to get hair right, even though they've left the Wookiees out. The hair's still Cal's isn't too bad, but there's a few characters, and you look at it and you think, "Fuck, what is that on your head?" So yeah, but it's not ready. It's not even close to being ready. It shouldn't have been released. It's so bad.
Wow.
Probably one of the worst looking PS5. The worst looking PS5 game I've played, without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah.
And this was delayed a month as well. So
fuck knows what it was like before that then.
No, that's what I always think when stuff like this happens. So let's go through some basics. Did you suffer any hard crashes where you're playing the game, it just completely shits out and you lose progress and have to go back to an earlier save, restart the console or restart the game? Are we talking that? Okay. How many roughly? Are we talking handful?
Over 10.
Whoa!
In a 30-hour, 35-hour playthrough, over 10 times.
That's not good. And the way in which the game is set up and structured, can you lose a lot of progress? Did you ever get to a point where you lost over 10 minutes or something like that? Or did it ever happen during a boss battle and you're in the last phase and it shits out? Or did you kind of get away? Did they get away with it from that perspective slightly?
To be honest, every time I'd done it, I was just every time it crashed, luckily for me, it was I was just wandering around. Yeah. So I wasn't doing anything of any worth. A couple of times you'd find collectibles and then you'd go back when it had crashed and you'd be like, right, I've got to go and collect those collectibles again. But it wasn't anything, luckily, just through luck, it wasn't anything major for me. I didn't lose 15, 20 minutes of actual story gameplay or anything like that. It was just always just wandering around.
Bloody hell. And so it's got hard crash over 10. That's pretty... That's probably the worst, I think, speaking to someone for a long time, that someone's come in with that level of data there.
It crashed back to back 4 times. Just I started it, crashed, started it, and I just turned the whole thing off, the whole console at the back, turned it back on, and then that managed to sort it. But it crashed 4 times back to back. Like within 10 seconds of seeing Cal, it crashed again.
Did you ever think, is my PS5 broken here? Like,
I did think that, because I thought there's no way a game can perform this bad in 2023. It can't be. And I've not had anything. I mean, I reckon I've never had more than a hard crash maybe twice in any game. Yeah. And I don't think... to have as many as I had was ridiculous.
It's rare for a game to come out... And not being funny, as we record this, it's sitting on an 84 on OpenCritic, which doesn't tell a story of something that crashes 10 times. I mean, you could say the reviewers maybe they didn't experience the crashes, but I know for a fact Adkins has had it as well. Like, it seemed like every time there was an update, it was potluck whether it made the game better or worse in terms of stability. And this is completely disappointing when you guys were talking about this, and to kind of hear it from the horse's mouth now. Hard crashing is the worst of all the sins, in my view, because it just completely ruptures your flow, doesn't it? And your playthrough. I bet sometimes you thought, fuck it, I'll just go and do something else today.
Yeah, and it defeats the object of why you're doing it, because you just play a game just to chill out and relax, and you end up getting annoyed at it. You think, fucking hell, why am I doing this? Like,
What about frame rates? Now, I know you're not a big frame rate sort of hog, but you know, do you normally put things on performance mode? Is there a performance mode or a fidelity mode to choose from? Is that all?
There is a performance mode, and see, this is the thing, this is where I'm going to show how thick and how much I know about it. But I put it on performance mode. And I don't know if that gives you more frame rate or less frame rate.
It should give you more frame rate. It should make the games faster, but look like a PS3 game.
Right, okay. So, yeah, I had it on performance mode. Something I got really badly is where you'd be playing the game and the top half of the screen and the bottom half, say the top 70% of the screen is doing something different. It didn't match up.
Screen tearing,
It constant throughout the whole game. It basically, I felt like putting a black border of about an inch on the top of my TV to stop it, because it was so annoying. You just literally turn the camera slowly, just tear every time. It was fucking abysmal.
When they released The Evil Within, they had black bars like that from the top and bottom of the game. I wonder if they had screen tearing and they just thought, fuck it, we're gonna claim it's a cinematic choice and an atmospheric choice and just put these black bars up at the top or bottom. So screen tearing's there as well when you're moving around. And then what would you say on the frame rate side? Did it at least feel smooth, or was that still noticeable with drops and judgeries?
Yeah, it had drops, and especially I remember when the first time I played it, when there was the first patch they released did help it. It definitely did. But I remember fighting there was about 10 different characters, and it just couldn't keep up. It was just like it was absolutely insane. And there's something else that happened when I first opened the game up. When you first start the game, it was like the whole screen was black, and I could hear them talking, and I could see the outlines of them talking in the video, and I was like, what the fuck's going on? Is this like a cinematic thing? Is this meant to look like you know how Logan had that noir? Yeah. It was like black and white. I thought, is this the setting? Because this is my introduction to the game. And I Googled it, and it was like, oh no, you have to change the HDR. I think Hall found it for me, funny enough. Yeah. And he sent it to me, and I had to change all the HDR settings, put everything up to its maximum brightness on my PS5 just to watch it. I couldn't even see it. I couldn't make out who was who. I saw a faint outline of them. And I've played every game with those settings, but for some, it just wouldn't accept those settings. And it's only recently I've managed they've sort of put a patch out to change that.
Yeah.
But like literally the introduction to the game was just black. It was terrible.
Did you ever find out? Did they ever write in like why it was like that? Like, did people that were putting the help guides together? Did they say there was a reason? It was just the HDR just not configured properly, or is it?
I'm not 100%, but it basically the video Hall sent me said that basically the only way you could have HDR on was to change these settings on your PS5. Not on the game, on your actual PS5.
Oh, okay, to calibrate it from that end.
Yeah, that was the only way to sort of get round it and have it in HDR. So that's what I had to do.
You swapped it back now.
Yeah, I had to text you the other day saying I need to get it back now because I fucking turned it on my retinas and it got blown out of my head. It was so bright.
Any other issue? I mean, this is just unbelievable in many aspects. Any other issues to report on. We've got hard crashes, we've got screen tearing, we've got frame rates dropping out, and then we've got this weird color palette that didn't configure correctly to your HDR settings. Anything else just to top off this miserable section of the review?
So there's like a scene where you have a boss fight, and then it's only happened once, but the scene where the boss fight, quite like an intense, quite a big part of the game, you're finding out something quite major. And then I looked, and Cal was talking to someone, and there was nobody there. And then I was like, what the fuck? And then I could hear someone talking back to him, but again, no one there. And then as you look up, I could see the persons who I just thought his feet were stuck in the ceiling, and they were just wiggling like that. And it's just like a major... It's like, I don't know, God of War Ragnarok and Andrea... what's his fucking son's name? Atreus is talking, and it's like a major... it was a really pinnacle moment in the game, and I've just got someone's fucking feet dangling around in the ceiling. It was so bad. And yeah, apart from that, that was the worst thing I had, but there's no other issues apart from those massive 6 issues or 5 issues.
Is there any redeeming qualities to it from a presentation or a performance perspective? Do they get anything right?
No. There's another thing as well that you get, without spoiling the game, you can go round on animals and
a mount,
a mount basically. And one of them you'll see if you play it. It looks fucking awful. It looks like
worse than the Wookiees.
I don't know. It's not that bad, but it's pretty bad when you see the way they move.
You should best
it's
mount
bad.
You should best mount a Wookiee. That would be the ultimate. Fucking hell. So not a happy home life on the technical front for Star Wars Jedi Survivor. It's eye-opening, really. And yeah, so like I said, Adkins was playing this alongside you for most of it, and I think he got maybe halfway and then sacked it off to play Zelda, like he often does. But he had similar complaints as well. He had issues and crashes, and every day he would say, new update, and it crashed as soon as I loaded it up. And I was like, Jesus Christ, this is like pretty bad at this point.
Yeah.
Like, it goes past like the usual sort of scruffiness that you're seeing in a release. And how much did this ruin the game for you? Like, I know we'll get to the overall faults of it, but these issues that you encountered, how badly did it affect your enjoyment of this?
I mean, it did affect it. It definitely did. But it's also testament to the game of how good a game it is that I persevered through it. So if it was like an average game, I'd have just fucked it off and then come back to it in 6 months. But I was enjoying it so much, and it was, I really did enjoy it that much that I sort of persevered through it, even for, the tearing and the fucking crashes and everything. It was still a really, really good game. So it did affect it, but like I say, it's testament to the game that I sort of soldiered on.
Yeah. Okay. Let's try and steer it into a more positive direction. What is this game open world? Or is it linear, or is it more like hub-based, where you sort of visit planets and have a little bit of agency over what you do? Because I'm not sure. It looks like it's been expanded from the first one. I don't know if that's true or not, but what's the sort of general kind of structure that you as a player get, and what agency are you given on how you conduct Cal's, his investigations throughout the world?
So basically, different worlds equate to different things, really. So it's sort of different games. So
okay.
Some of the planets are quite linear, where they've got quite so there's only one way you can sort of follow. Yeah. The main planet is one called Koba, and that's massive. It's huge, and that is really open world. You can do whatever you want.
Okay.
Sort of just wander around doing, whenever, wherever, as soon as you land on the planet. But to access certain areas, you need to unlock certain abilities, and to do that, you have to follow the story. So it's quite good. So, but Koba is they're all open world to an extent, but Koba is the main one where you can really wander around and sort of do what you want, and it's massive. It's absolutely huge, like bigger than all the other planets combined. I'd say. It's really, really, really big, Koba.
So that's the main event. Can you accidentally stumble into places where you shouldn't be and get like wiped out by strong enemies, or has it got some protection? Oh no, all right. So you can.
Yeah, do that, you can just get battered. That happened.
Would you describe this as an action game, or any other way to describe it? Is it an out and out kind of action game, or is there more adventuring? And what I mean by adventuring, more like puzzles and climbing around and things like that, or is it mostly combat and you know.
So it is mostly combat and action. There is certain aspects to it. Like there's like I forgot what they're called now, but they're basically temples that are created by the Jedi's, and you go in them, and they've got puzzles in them, and you have to figure it out. It's sort of lateral thinking and moving blocks and sort of Tomb Raider-esque sort of little challenges. But that's quite a small part of it. But yeah, it's mainly action and combat sort of thing, I would say.
What's the basic loop of the game? If you was to, I assume you keep returning to this big planet time and time again as you go on the main path, and then maybe unlock a new ability or whatnot, and you can explore other areas of other planets. What was your sort of general loop of playing the game? Was there side quests that you'd get yourself snarled up in? Would you clear down all the optional stuff, or was you jumping through the main campaign and just chugging that along as best you could?
So yeah, I've sort of done a bit of a mixture of both. So the campaign leads you to unlock certain things, and then when you unlock certain things, you think, actually, I'm just going to go and wander around and see what else I can see in Koba now, because I've unlocked a new ability. What can I go and see? And then that unlocks side quests. Something that's really quite cool is that there's a bar in Koba, and as you progress through the story, you can unlock characters, and those characters go back to the bar and unlock certain things in the bar. So there's like a garden. And you can plant seeds in it, and there's like a hologram fighting game, and there's a fish tank, and you unlock different fish, and it sort of progresses quite nicely. You can follow the story and just not even touch that if you wanted to, but there's lots to keep you busy. And like I say, I sort of done the quest, and when I'd unlock a new ability or a new sort of gadget that would help me explore Koba, I would just go back to Koba, then go back to the story once I'd sort of rinsed that, and then that's the sort of way I've done it.
And in terms of, one of the things that I found irritating from Fallen Order was navigation, and the map in particular was just, it was unbearably difficult to use to figure out where I needed to go. And particularly when I was unlocking new areas or going back to places I'd revisited, it always felt like a pain in the arse to get around because the navigation and the map were just weren't helpful. How was that in this game? Because it sounds like there's a lot to explore off the beaten path and lots of optional stuff to do. Does the game make it easier for you to do that? And is the map well signposted? And is there waypoints and things to help you out, or can that be a bit of a pig still?
It's not perfect. It's a lot better. It's a lot better. The map is much easier to read. It's much easier to navigate, and it's not as. I remember on Fallen Order, it was very levelled, and it would be like, how the fuck do I get from that level to that level? This is more just one level. A lot of it. There are still levels, but it's a much better. The only thing is, I don't know why they don't do this. You just drop a waypoint on a map, and then it just gives you an arrow. Like, I don't understand why that wasn't part of it. So it's much better, but it's not perfect. It's still a bit of aggro. Like the waypoint would make everything so much easier. If you could just drop a pin, that would make it a lot easier.
Yeah, I understood. How does the game feel to play then? Because I assume this is the main event, like the combat and what you can do with or without the lightsabers. How does this get? Does it improve much from the original? And where does it kind of stand in 2023 with some of the other action games that you've played recently?
So I think the combat's fantastic. It really was really, really good. There's lots of different types of enemies now. Some are really weak, and it makes you feel like you're a proper Jedi. Like there's like little droids, and you can literally just push them, and they just collapse, which I quite liked.
Yeah.
Some are really difficult. There's certain enemies from the last game that they've just brought back. Some of them they've just improved and made it more difficult. But the combat is really, really good. There's different stances as well, so you have different lightsabers, and it makes you play it differently. So some are just sort of fast and weak attacks, some are really slow but devastating attacks. The only thing I didn't like about it is with the different stances, there's not like an enemy that can only be defeated by one stance.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
There's no sort of point. There's no point in having all these stances because you only need two, or you only need one. You can defeat any enemy with one stance. So there's no sort of real quest to sort of go and make yourself better with another stance. I thought it would be better if they had a certain area we go in this area. It'd be really beneficial for you to have a really hard swing,
Yeah.
but slow.
To like break
enemies,
through defences and
yeah. And some of that were faster, that would require you to have a faster lightsaber move. There was none of that. And to be honest, the lightsaber I used the most was just the one you start with, which is really boring. I just stuck with that one, to be honest.
Gets the job done. I might be misremembering, but I think Ghost of Tsushima had a stance type mechanic in there. I think there were 3 of those that you could learn. And I think that did help with certain enemy types, if I remember correctly. Like, there were certain types of enemies where you needed to use, a stronger stance to break, like a shield down or something like that. And it kind of encouraged you to do that. But I kind of understand why they don't do it, because also if you really can't get to grips with one of the stances, and then you get put against a boss where you need to really be on point with that stance, you're going to be pissed off, aren't you? Because you're struggling to get through it. So it's a bit of it must be a tricky one to decide. You want to add more flexibility in there, but you perhaps don't want to force people to use it. But then for people like you, it's like, well, I'll just find what I'm good at and I'll stick with it. Thank you very much.
Yeah. No, I get your point. Yeah, I do get that. But I don't know, even just to the point of where, even if you didn't have to, but just it would make it easier to defeat an enemy. You could defeat it with any, but there was just no sort of need to do that. But, it's just a personal thing. That's all that is.
Dismemberment. How good is this? Is it because basically that's aimed at the Holy Grail, and we found out there's going to be dismemberment on Stormtroopers? Because I think in the first one you could cut like the animals in half; it would randomly do on finishes and whatnot. But you swipe that lightsaber through someone's arm like a Stormtrooper, and it'd still be attached, and you'd be like, "Well, we've been taught in the Star Wars lore that's not what happens. That thing should be clean cut off." Does the dismemberment live up to the hype in Survivor?
Not really. No.
Oh.
It's sort of random. It's not with the droids. It's quite good, but with the Stormtroopers, it's still not. They're
still
not
holding back a little bit. Do you think they're not letting you just carve people in half?
No, you can go in and chop someone in half, and they just have a red graze across their chest. It doesn't actually chop them in half. And I understand why they do it, but obviously there's certain robots as well. When you sort of slice them, and it just doesn't even register. It just doesn't break their sort of block bar. And you think, well, this is a lightsaber. It should be able to cut through it should be able to turn you into butter. But, they obviously can't do that for every enemy, because otherwise you just fucking smash everything to pieces, wouldn't you? But
yes, true, actually. It'd be a pretty easy game if everything you touch just melted away with the lightsaber. How did you get on with being chucked into the game? This is my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong. It chucks you into the game with all your old skills from the first game. Normally when you replay a game or start a sequel, I'll take God of War for example, they come up with the excuse that I think Fimbulwinter had like broken down all your powers and the magic that you put on, so you kind of start in from a fresh bottom of the barrel in terms of skills. My understanding in Survivor is you start off a lot of the stuff that you had in the first game, and this builds upon it.
Basically.
That's quite unique these days. Usually games don't want to do that. They want to start you with just the basics and then build up what you had in the first game, and then give you the newer stuff towards at the end of the game. But it sounds like here you start off with all the kit and the stuff you had in the first one, but then as you start playing, there's new stuff and new toys to unlock.
Yeah, so it is good the way they do it. But basically, the stuff you unlocked from the last game and that you have from the start in this game doesn't really help you that much, because you need other stuff. So grappling hooks, for instance, and another power that makes you help jump even further than the double jump.
Okay.
So they do it quite well in the fact that they don't go back to the basics, and Cal's just some baby who needs learning everything again, but he needs to get better, and it's the same sort of process basically.
How much stuff by the end of the game do you have at your disposal? Is it like an insane amount of tips and tricks that you can operate off? Is it like, I bet you didn't use half of it really. You probably tried it once and was like, well, that's cool, but
Oh no. So a lot of it is not really. It's more traversal to get around the planet. So to get through special doors, you need a special power. To get up high, you need a grappling gun, and then it unlocks, and you can then jump further distances. It's the traversal is really, really good, because you bring everything together.
Yeah.
So you might be like wall running and then jumping, gliding. There's a lot to it. It is really, really good.
When you hit a place where you can't get through, say it's a big gap that you can't jump with your double jump, you fall down a hole and die, does it mark it on the map as a blocked path, or do you have to mentally remember, when I get my next power that I think will unlock that, I've got to remember to come back here? Or will it put like a little marker there to say your progression's blocked at this time, so you can You don't have to remember it,
Yeah.
basically.
So basically, it just puts a red wall up, and it says, this is locked. And I think when you unlock the power, I'm not 100%, so I need to double check this, but I think when you unlock the power, when you check the map again, it should go green to show you now that you can actually go through that where you couldn't before. I'm pretty sure it does that. Pretty sure.
Nice. Anything else on how the game plays and the combat or the powers or the skills that you unlock? Anything positive or negative that you wanted to mention?
Not really. There's a bit of a throwaway thing now where you get perks and you can unlock little bits that sort of help you in the game slightly.
Like little buffs, like little 10%,
yeah. If you throw the lightsaber, the damage is better if you have this buff, and just little bits like that. It was pretty wishy-washy, to be honest. Again, you still have the skill system where you can upgrade, you learn different moves with different lightsabers, and then you have force powers and you can unlock a better health bar, and BD1 has the stims that they'll give you more health and things like that.
BD1.
Yeah.
I remember him doing all sorts of useful stuff in the first one, like finding stuff or pointing you towards, like making a noise when there were certain things that you might miss, like a little loot thing or something. Does he still have little pointers like that?
You're nothing. He's the real hero of the story. Something I didn't mention that I thought I'd quickly mention now, which is quite good, was the customization. So you can customize the lightsaber amazingly well.
And his hair, you can change all his hair and all that shit, give him a beard.
Different outfits, and then you can change the colour of the outfit. And same with BD1, he has like different eyes and different heads, bodies, toes, ear sensors. You can change all the colours of it. All the lightsaber can be changed, the colour. You can make it wood or metal or rubber, and that's really, really cool. That was like quite nice to make your little cow unique and BD1 unique as well.
Did you change his haircut?
Yeah, like a slick back ginger.
Can't dye his hair then, they won't let you do that.
No. The worst thing about the game, that is.
That's cool. That's something I definitely will spend time doing when I play it. Like an unusual amount of time in there, just fiddling around. Like every time I unlock a new haircut, I always put it on, and then I go right. I've got to do at least one mission with his new haircut, and then I kept doing it at The Witcher, going to the barbers every 3 days just to get a new haircut and get the beard trimmed. Can you put a beard on him?
Yeah, you get a beard.
Bloody hell. Doesn't grow in real. Get some stubble.
Length. Yeah. You can change the length of the stubble as well, and it's like goatees, but it doesn't grow like in like
Red Dead or Witcher.
Yeah, The Witcher. Yeah.
Soundtrack. Obviously, it's a Star Wars game, so this is usually a high point. Even if the film's shit, the soundtrack remains like a key component of it. How do they do with the game here? Faithful and fits the bill.
Yes. I didn't really pay too much attention to the soundtrack, to be honest. You can, when you go into the bar, one of the people you can unlock is a DJ, and then you can unlock different tracks to play in the bar as you're walking around, and you can change it like a jukebox, basically. But I didn't.
Does it have tunes from the film that you can?
I was just about to say I didn't really pay too much attention to it, so it might have had some songs from the film that I've not really been paying attention to.
Well, the same anyway, isn't it? It's John Williams. If it's in there, it's in there. If it's not, it's not. How hard was the game this time round? Because I'm assuming it's got the same kind of experience system where if you die, you can go back, and if you defeat the enemy, you get your experience back. If you die again, you lose that 10,000 or whatever the points were. I assume it's the same there. How did you get on with the difficulty this time? Because again, you said you put it up one level again for the extra misery.
Yeah, it's a really good blend. So it's not like impossibly hard, like you do Dark Souls or Bloodborne or something like that, where you just want to throw yourself out of the window. But it's also not so easy. You're just not having to think about what you're doing. So it's quite a nice sort of blend of difficult without being too difficult in my eyes. It's sort of everything's realistic, and with something like, I don't know, Bloodborne or Dark Souls, when I played that, I remember having to die to learn how to defeat an enemy. But with this, you can sort of, it's not that hard. You can sort of think, I know what he's going to do here, and just keep your block up. And so it is good. It's not too hard, but not too easy. It's a good challenge.
Excellent. Has it got any online modes or anything? No, like weird, like network, but because some things have like weird, like social elements built in now, where it will like booting other players' findings and stuff. Like Dark Souls, for example, actually shows like a spectre of where other players have gone and where they've died and whatnot. Is there anything like that in this, or is it
No, not that I saw. No.
Good.
There's a little training bit you can do, which is you had that in the first game where you can set up a sort of just fight enemies to practice on. But yeah, nothing with other players online.
No. Any other call outs or things that you feel like you want to chat about?
No, covered pretty much everything, I think. Yeah.
Excellent. Right. The podcast of two halves, it seems. Technically deficient, but under the hood, a well-designed and enjoyable game to play. The all-important question is, does it earn itself a place in the Dimp Digital Gaming Gallery? Keeping in mind, you're putting your name to this.
Yeah.
It'll say Biff underneath it if you decide to do it. This is big pressure now.
I would say it does. Yeah. Like I say, it's a quality game. I really, really enjoyed it. It's probably one of the best games I've played since sort of God of War, Last of Us. It's okay. And if they could have sort of sorted the technical side of it out and the visual side of it out, it genuinely would have been right up there with them. It's really, really good game. I've got a feeling if you play it in 6 months' time to a year, once they've sorted this shit out, you'll go, that was amazing.
Right.
So yeah, I would put it in there, but there should be a little caveat that says give it 6 months from release.
No caveats available. No
caveats.
So. Well, someone walks in there 12 months afterwards, they probably won't know any difference. They'll be like, yeah, that's correct. But that's interesting advice. Don't play it. We're talking like what, 2 months after it's come out almost.
Yeah, it's still tearing, still loads of problems like that with it.
6 weeks, it's bizarre, absolutely bizarre. Anyway, you can advertise it or reward it with a platinum, gold, silver, or bronze. Where does Star Wars Jedi Survivor go in the gallery for you?
See, it's hard because if it was good, if they'd sorted it out, it would be sort of touching a platinum. I'm going to go silver. Right. Once they've sorted it, it will be a gold, I think. But very close to a platinum. If you like Star Wars, you could give it a platinum, I suppose. But
if you don't like Star Wars, is there anything there for anyone?
Yeah. If you don't like Star Wars, you've got no interest in it. It's still be a good game. I think gold would be good, but at the moment, as it is, silver.
Yeah, that's all you can do. It's always a snapshot in time. So until they sort those issues regularly, it's always going to struggle a little bit. But that's interesting. Star Wars Jedi Survivor earns itself a silver. Goes into Biff's personal exhibition in the gaming gallery. I think that's going to be it, mate. So good job. Back again. Trying to become a regular, it seems. Don't get paid for this. Logan don't get paid for it. Adkins don't. Although we did give you some new earphones.
Yeah, exactly. So perks of the job.
Exactly. Don't lose them.
I won't.
Well, I know what that household's like. Things go missing, get left out, and then gets put in the bin and whatnot, and that'll be the end of it.
Oh, okay, I'm safe, don't worry.
17 quid, hey? Should be 20 quid. Amazon were doing a little offer, so got them cheaper. But people will have noticed the increased sound quality, because even you said when you listened to it back, you were disgusted with it.
But when you said about it, I was like, oh, you're a bit of a perfectionist. But when I played it, I thought, fucking hell, that is bad. That sounded well ropey, so hopefully this sounds a bit better.
It does sound better. Absolutely. Anyway, I'll let you go and I'll let the audience go. As usual, if you've made it this far, thanks for listening. But nothing more for us to say here other than thanks for your time and ta-da.
This was a Dimp Digital production.